Good morning. I'm just chiming in. There's a lot of videos down my timeline of women talking about how they refuse to live with a man again and how they won't live with a man. And I'm chuckling to myself, like I'm kikiing, because I remember when I was a teenager, way back in the day, when I was a teenager, I remember expressing how I felt like marriage wasn't natural in the sense of, a man and a woman sharing a bed every night and, living that closely together. I just didn't feel like it was natural. And I was scolded a little bit back then or whatever, because you would have thought that I was blaspheming or something. And this was way, way, way back in the day. But I even remember telling my mom that, one time or whatever, and she was just like, well, marriage is ordained by God, but, I do understand, kind of where you're coming from, but marriage, don't forget, marriage is ordained by God. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to keep my little thoughts to myself. And so years and years later, after I've been married and divorced and, and years, post divorce, I was having a conversation with my mother probably about 5 or 6 years ago. And I was telling her about a date that I had gone on, and, it was like I didn't have, positive feelings from it. Like it wasn't going to go anywhere else. And so she was telling me, well, you know what, T, don't worry, girl. She was like, you'll meet somebody, and next thing you know, you'll be planning another wedding. You'll be getting married again before you know it. And you know, I was a little bit scared to, kind of reach in and be like, I'm not really sure if that's what I want, or whatever. But because I was so much older and really wanted um, autonomy over my own thoughts, feelings, and my own truth, or whatever, I kind of reached in lightly, because mama would have reached through the phone, snatched me up. But anyway, rest her soul. But I reached in a little bit and I was like, well, I said, Mom, I don't know if I really want to be married again. Really? So I was like, well, let me just throw it all out there. I was to say, well, honestly, Mom, I said, I can see being married again or whatever. I just don't want to live I want us living in separate houses. And it was like, you could tell that it was really strange for her to hear. And my mother was born in 1943, y'all. So my mother was, old school, old school. Okay. So, she, she was like, what? And so she kind of got quiet. And I was like, yeah, I said, I can, I said, I want him to have his king's chambers and I want my queen's chambers or whatever. And whether that's marriage or not, it's not that big of a deal to me, unless in marriage we have some contracts or property, something that we're business wise trying to, kind of secure and build or something. But outside of that, but I told her, I was like, I don't know if I want to share a bathroom. I don't want to share my bed every night. I don't want to do that. And so she said, I think you might be onto something. I know I am, because the girlies are now like, I don't want to share my closet. I don't want to share my bathroom. And when I was married, my husband was a neat freak. My husband was a neat freak when I was married. And it was hilarious, because when I would do our laundry, I would dump out the hamper and wrinkled clothes and folded clothes would fall out onto the floor. Because his pants, his t-shirts, his socks were folded in half or whatever. No, he was never in the military. He was just neat as hell. And please don't get me wrong, I appreciate that, because at times my cleaning was subpar to what he would have had. Then you go ahead and pick up that broom. But anyway, I'm divorced now. But yeah, I like to see it, and I feel like we shouldn't see each other's filthiness. You know what I mean? I feel like men and women should be able to lay up in a bed and freely fart if you need to let one go, without offending the next person that's in the bed with you. A woman should be able to have her period and be uncomfortable and cramp and stretch out, lay across the bed, throw a pillow across the room, whatever she needs to do. I feel like that's the natural order of things. So, King, I'll send for you. You know, send for me. But I'll send for you. And I feel like that's the way it should be. I'm just saying. Have a good day.